All right. Let's talk children. In the media today, there is a lot of talk about children and children's rights. From the legal perspective, can you please talk about that a little bit?
Okay, before I get into the legal perspective, let me just say that it's very good that there's a lot about children in the media and everywhere. Because for me, it represents awareness about the importance and the centrality of children in a society. Because you know what? The future is the children.
Yes.
I remember a client of mine who had lived here for a long time, then returned to his country, Germany. And he once came to visit. And he said, you know, Judy, you guys mistreat your children so badly. I mean, because he'd been in the streets and had seen the street children. And he said, you know, what would make Kenya a superpower is its youth, you see, because we have so many, you know, young people. And of course, you know, the future is youth, you see, exactly. But we fail to know or to appreciate the resource that Africa carries as a continent, and Kenya for that matter, in having so many youth. So for me, I'm excited when I see so much talk about children, about the youth, about the programs in place, because it's a chance that our children will take us from an undeveloped nation to a developed nation.
Absolutely.
But you asked me to talk about children and the law and legal, so I digress. So I'll tell you what, children, the definition of a child under the law is anyone below the age of 18 years, okay? And anyone below that age is not of contracting capacity, is not of consenting age. You know, they can't marry, they cannot sign a document, you see, they cannot own property. Somebody will have to hold it in trust for them. And someone is expected to be responsible for them physically, legally, and financially. Okay? But I should add that for financially, is that it doesn't just end at 18. If a child still requires support beyond the age of 18 years, parents are responsible to maintain that child if they still need provision. So up to a certain age.
It is an obligation on the parent side, not in a negative, but it's an obligation of the parent to provide.
Indeed. Okay. And I would actually call it a responsibility.
Yes.
So in the first place, the responsibility of a parent ends at 18 years. But the Children's Act provides that parental responsibility may be extended beyond 18 years, where the child is still in need of sustenance. So what we have seen in courts is that up the first degree, or up the time that they finish college, the parents will be obliged to provide for that child. But let me also take you to terms that people speak a lot about when they talk about children and the law.
Please do.
And one of them is custody. When people are in conflict over children, one of the things that they will tell you is that they want custody of their children. So custody can be legal, and custody can be actual or physical. Okay. In legal custody, courts have two options: to give sole legal custody to one parent, sole legal custody to one parent, or to give joint legal custody to both parents. Legal custody means the right and the power to make certain key decisions over a child or children. Those decisions are not everyday decisions. They are, for example, immigration from this country. They are education, which school to go to, and they are medical if it's not an emergency. The rule of the thumb is that both parents should have the right to make decisions over their children, so that it ought not to be one parent who decides whether a child should emigrate from Kenya or not. It ought not to be one parent who decides where a child should go to school. It ought not to be one parent who decides whether a child should have a certain operation or not. It ought to be both parents. The only time that the courts will allow for one parent to have sole legal custody and therefore make those decisions alone, is where it is in the best interests of the child for that to happen. Okay, so the starting point, I want to say again, this, whether parents are married or not, is that a child has a right to both parents, and that those parents should make decisions together, not everyday decisions, but on key decisions.
I see.
That however, where that is not possible and where that will affect a child's best interests, then the courts will give one parent the right to make those decisions.
How is, I mean, there are some things that are very obvious as far as child's best interest. However, so for example, migration. Say one parent wants the child to move to one country. So how do you determine if that's the best interest?
That's interesting.
You know?
That's a very interesting question. So again, the best interest of a child. But here is what the courts have said in the past, that the world has become a global village.
Yes.
You see, even when parents are still together and married, it is very possible that one parent could be posted to New York, for example.
Yes.
So the children being in a different part of the globe is inconvenient, but neither here nor there, so to speak. So how the courts determine what is in the best interest of a child is to ask, if this child was in Nairobi, who would they be staying with? If it is the mother, then they say, then they can go to New York with them, because it's not about the place. It's about the person who's providing primary care. You see, it's because it's not about the place at all. It's about the person. Provided, of course, they are not being taken to a war zone or to a place where they will be exposed, you know, in any way. So there's quite a number of cases now about, you know, parents wanting to relocate from Kenya and what have you. And those are some of the considerations that the court will make. What is in the best interest of the children? Why is a parent going, for example, the parent is going to pursue work? That's a parent who's been giving primary care of the children in Kenya. And if she's been good in Kenya, then she'll be good in New York or wherever it is, Argentina or wherever it is. But of course, it's also in the best interest of the children to continue and to have a bond with the other parent. So in that case, they will then provide very generously for the participation of the other parent in the children's lives. Because I should have started by telling you that it is an accepted, very important principle that a child has a right to both parents. It is not the parents who have a right to the children. And we keep on making that that mistake, saying, I have a right to my children. No. It's more fundamental than that. More fundamental. It is a child who has a right to both parents. Okay, and so if you are in New York, one parent has to go to New York, then what the courts will make sure is that they will have the child come this way. Most of the holidays, they will also provide that if the other parent were to go to New York, they will have a right to see the child. And of course, now with the virtual access and Skype and beyond Skype and Zoom and God knows what, it's very easy, and it happens a lot that parents who are not living with the child speak to the child on a daily basis on video. So it's become much easier. But before I forget, let me go to the next section of custody, which we call actual custody. So now we define the legal. And it can be joint and it can be sole. But that does not speak to who is a parent who lives with the child. Actual custody speaks to who is physically with the child. That's the one we call actual custody, and you can also call it care and control, and you can also call it physical custody. Okay, so that's another definition that the court is called many times to make. And it's very interesting, as I have said, about culture shift and being dynamic. Courts are now moving towards parents sharing actual custody equally, moving towards. Okay, it's work in progress, and these things don't take a week or so. It's a process, but we are moving, towards there, in recognition of the fact that the child needs both parents. Okay, so that at the beginning of my time, when I started to do law, and it's many decades, it was almost a given that a child of tender years would be with a mother.
Yes.
But so that what would happen is that the father would have access here and there. A Saturday evening,
Yes.
Sunday afternoon, after school and what have you. Of course, when we know better, we do better.
Correct.
So we have, of course, even as a society, recognized that the children need more to see their fathers.
Yes.
More than that, they need their fathers as much as they need their mothers.
Yes.
So now we are moving towards a situation where when the father is able to provide primary care, and I'm happy for the next generation because many dads are able to provide primary care, of course, as a result also of the way they have been socialized.
Yes.
Because the daddies of old, of that time, of seeing the children in the afternoon, would not have had a clue about how to feed or take care of the children and what have you, or what to tell them beyond giving them a bit of money, to go and spend at the kiosk. But now we have daddies, they're there. They wake up with a baby, milk is expressed so that they can give the baby. They wake up with a baby. So they are, in every sense, able daddies. And so courts then have situations where they'll say a week has 7 days. Mommy and daddy want time with the child. The child has a right to both parents. So how about we divide the week this way? You take weeknights, one parent, that's 4 nights, and the other parent picks the children, for example, from school on Friday afternoon and is with them and drops them back to school on Monday morning. And meaning that this weekend parent has a bit of the school time because they are picking up the child from school and has a bit of school time because they are dropping the child back to school in the morning. And so on Monday morning. And so the child is likely to say, my daddy, he can beat your daddy, because you're also part of their school life.
Yes.
So for some parents, that doesn't work. For some of them, it's a week here, a week there.
Okay.
For others, it's a month here, a month there. So there are many situations in which actual custody has been now exercised by both parents over children. But then there are also other conservative situations where we have the dad, having access, during the weekend only. And then sometimes even on alternate weekends, because it's also said that the person who is with the children during the week does not have fun time.
Yes.
So if the other parent has every weekend, then when does this other parent who's probably working also and only gets to see the children in the evening, have some fun time. So some parents are even able to agree on alternate weekends. There are many variations of actual custody. Also, the person who sees the children less may even be said to have access. That's another term that we have in law. Okay, that one parent could have actual custody and the other one just has access terms, meaning that they have less time to the children than the one who has actual custody.
Interesting.
Yes.
Does the child ever get to be part of this decision?
Oh, yeah.
Within, is the child ever called to court to say if there's a dispute between the two parents?
Absolutely. Yes. So in determining custody, a court should have regard to many things, including the ascertainable wishes of a child. But now the child is little, below 10, many of them, their wishes cannot be ascertained. So, and many times the courts say if a child is 12 or 13 or 14, even though they are below 18, you can't push them into a car when they are fighting and pushing. You cannot. So if they say we don't want to go to mommy's this weekend, it's valid. You must listen to them. Okay, of course they are not 18 yet. Of course they are not fully developed in terms of their capacity to know where they are. But their wishes will be taken into account. So the child does have a say. And our children are getting more and more bold and more aware.
Oh, yes.
I think even at 8 years, they'll be able to tell you, but I don't want to be there. And there's little you can do, you see. So again, things are not static.
It's amazing to see the new generation speaking out loud to what they want and understanding that they have a voice as well.
Absolutely. But it's an interesting thing that you say. And here's what I've always said. The generation after us stands on our shoulders. They see further than we did.
Yes.
And the easiest way to tell you about it is the ones who fought for the independence. When you think about it, there are people who didn't have the right to sit the way we are sitting and express themselves the way we are expressing ourselves,
Very true.
They actually had to go into the forest and live there so that they could fight for independence. The right not to career path, you know what I mean?
Yes.
All those things. And then the ones who they came after that had a little more freedom, you know, than a little more freedom, because they stood on the shoulders of those ones, you know.
Correct.
So those ones didn't quite benefit from the freedom they fought for. The ones that came after that had a lot more freedom, even politically, by the way. And now where are we? You know, I think, you know, speaking from the rooftops, you can say what you want. So it's interesting also that even our children are enjoying more and more spaces based on the fact that they stand on your shoulders. So you did some struggle yourself. For the children who come after you to have greater space, there was also some struggle that you did so that they could then benefit from that space and that which you fought for.
So when looking at the best interest of the child, is gender a factor?
Okay, so whose gender, the child's or the parents'?
The child's gender, and compared to, maybe there's a presumption that, you know, a female child is best with the mother. Maybe I do not know. That's what I.
So it's not in the law.
Okay.
It is again one of the societal constructs that a girl child should be brought, you know, up by the mother. Okay, it's easier for the boy child to go with the father than the girl child, but then again, that's a social construct, and that is also based on society protecting the child.